Hey guys, so welcome to another episode, and today the overview quickly. Personality styles, not personality styles, but personalities. My thoughts around it. I give an overview of why it's important and how can it have an effect in personal life as well as business, and why is self-awareness a thing? Why should, if you're a business owner, a team leader or a parent and you don't have time, and I'm saying this is the most important thing you've got to do, then have a listen, and I give you the 7 gifts that we work with and how to identify them and what to look out for. And it might just be a really good first step into your journey. And if you're further along with it, I do go in depth for those of you that are interested. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. Much love. Hey, welcome back to the Identity Human podcast with your host, Don. I tried to get Ray on as a guest, and yeah, she has got other priorities like being a mom to 4 kids, making sure the business goes well, and focusing on her time and ensuring she says no to the things that aren't a priority. Also, she realizes that I can just talk. And today I'm actually quite excited to talk because, I think in episode 8, I spoke a little bit about gifts and personalities, and it's something I've done a lot of deep diving into. It's really fascinating, okay? So today we're going to talk about personalities. Again, and probably less personalities in terms of how we generally or traditionally would know them, like Myers-Briggs and anything else that looks into how we behave and then tries to predict within quadrants, and more into, I want to introduce the concept of what's your gift. Now, what's your gift is it's that thing that gives you energy, but you don't realize why or how. You just feel good when you do it. And if you're unaware, you won't realize that there are certain things that make you feel good. There's certain things that you can do, and there's just certain things that you just repulse. And generally, those things that you repulse, you aren't even going to accept doing. And then there's those things that you're good at doing that you'll do, but they eventually drain you. And then there's those things that you really enjoy doing. Now, if you've ever read that book, 10x, 2x to 10x, I'm not sure what the title is. Ray read it the other day. I read it, and it's quite interesting because it talks about your zone of excellence and your zone of genius. Now, I'm tying in a thread here is why on earth should we put so much time and emphasis on understanding personalities? And I think it comes down to this. It's a long journey, is understanding personalities, i.e. your own, other people's, understanding your gift. If you want to even talk about human design, it's knowing that through that understanding, you will be able to differentiate where your zone of excellence is and where your zone of genius is. And we want to end up in our zone of genius, because that zone of genius is where we're not using willpower and discipline. That zone of genius is where we're not trying. It's not wearing us down. We're just buzzing. We're just on it. You just get up and you can go, and it doesn't take much. Like, there's a lot around there that I really like, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about personalities. So, a saying is, and I searched it because you often will see ones that like to know yourself is to know others as intelligence, to know yourself as wisdom, or to know yourself as the beginning of wisdom, because the more you find out, the more you realize you don't know, right? But I really enjoy this saying. So, when you know yourself, you are empowered, great? But when you accept yourself, you're invincible. And that's by Tina Lifford. And I love that. I saw that and I was like, that really resonates, because I think most of us, some people in one way or another, whether it's forced upon us by our work or where we self-taught or we self-dive into it, is most of us will kind of start the journey of knowing yourself. And that could be even as basic as introvert, extrovert. And you do feel a bit more like, oh, I'm an introvert, therefore I'm going to reserve my energy. Oh, I'm an extrovert, therefore I need to see people. And then what happens is you start to suffer the consequences of duality, where all of a sudden you are doing something that you used to do before, but now because you know more, you may start to say, oh, I'm an introvert, so now I don't enjoy hanging out with people as much. And then you start to withdraw, oh, I'm an extrovert and I need to be around people and doing stuff. Whereas actually it's just, we just try and go to the extremes too often. So the empowerment does come with, not handcuffs. The empowerment does come with a clause. And I think we have to be aware of bouncing through that, because I personally, I read it. When people say that, or when I say that, I'm like, but yes, I means personally. I think that we should be using personality development and knowing yourself as a springboard and not a ceiling, not like a springboard, not a concrete diving board. That's the highest you're ever going to go. Those should be there to show us what we're capable of and how far above that can we go and how far do we come back down. And then we use that to keep springing up and keep springing up till we get to the next springboard. And then for me, that's how I see the evolution of life, is you've got a springboard that gets you onto the next springboard, that gets you onto the next one. And actually there's no limit. It just depends on how you use that to navigate through. So like change is the only thing that's constant, right? So if life is always changing, your environment's always changing, obviously there's going to be elements of you and how you interact with the environment that is going to change. If you have kids, you change your job, environmental factors happen, i.e. war, different government, day-to-day friends change, you get a raise, like everything is changing all the time. So actually knowing yourself and how you are in a vacuum, i.e. there's nothing else going on, that's where I think you can get really empowered. And then the next step is, and I like that saying as I'm tied back in because I can go all day on this, is when you accept yourself, you're invincible. And I love that. And I think some of the other episodes we've done around vulnerability and listening to how other people talk about things, and also this cognitive dissonance between who we want to be and who we are. Sometimes that who we want to be is misguided, and we'll talk about conditioning later. It's misguided because, you know, we perhaps saw someone that inspired us. We perhaps had someone in our past that told us we had to be something, and we try and strive for that. But that's who we want to be or who we think we are, as opposed to fighting and realizing that accepting who we are and how we can take that into what we want to be. Because I don't want to be putting limits on anyone. So I do think that if there's something in your mind that you want to be, you've got to go after it. But knowing and accepting yourself will mean that this is how you'll go after it. This is how you'll be when you get what you want. Do you know what I mean? So it always comes back down to money. If you want to be a millionaire, there are so many different types of millionaires, aren't there? And actually, that's who you want to be. But if you accept who you are, then you know what type of millionaire you're going to be. If that makes sense. If you want to be a parent, it's who you want to be, what type of parent you're going to be. Anyway, I'm slightly going off center. So we're going to bring it back into today. So Johari's window, I'm going to introduce the concept. That's a quadrant. And you've got the things that you know about yourself that everyone else knows about you. There's the things that everyone else knows about you that you don't know about yourself. And then the bottom quadrant, I mean, they can flip, is the things that you know that no one else knows about yourself. So I hope I've said that right. Things that everyone else knows that you don't know, things that you know that everyone else doesn't know. And then this corner, there's this dark quadrant. And it's the things that you don't know about yourself and the things that nobody else knows about you. And I came across that. I was preparing for a talk and I came across it and I was like, that is actually really good. And I think that's what we've got to chase going after, is that darkness. Because the more, I mean, essentially the Johari's window, that quadrant, was you could have a very small top left block and a very big dark block. That's someone that is isolated, doesn't do much self-reflection, doesn't get feedback, doesn't make any mistakes. They live in that bubble, right? And the suggestions of that was asking for feedback, being more authentic, going out into the world with yourself, and that shrinks that box. And I, you know, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. I realize that box will never disappear, but the smaller you can get that box, just by doing so, the top left box, as in the things that you know that everyone else knows, that gets bigger. And the bigger that box, and this is a metaphor, the more aligned you are with yourself, the less you have to fake who you are, the less you have to change how you approach people, and you just accept. You become invincible. You accept who you are. You accept that there's always going to be a bit that you don't know that no one else knows, that you accept that there's always going to be elements of life that one or the other doesn't know, i.e. you or yourself. So if you've ever looked into human design, I'm not talking about that today. That's fascinating. That's going to be future. But one of the principles, the tools, the way of explaining that they use is you have two lines of personality. One is the personality that you know about yourself and no one else knows. And then the other is the personality that everyone else knows about you that you don't know about yourself. And I love that. It's like that internal world versus the external world. So have you ever had feedback? And this is not like feedback as in I'm sitting down with my boss and we're talking to give me feedback. I'm talking about just passing comments, compliments, all that kind of stuff that are completely foreign to how you see yourself going about your day-to-day or the things that you do, right? That for me there is an example of how other people see you, how they approach you, their narrative towards you is your external personality. And by external personality, I don't mean behaviors and all the kind of stuff that we would understand, but I more mean the energy that you give off and how you're like, how people see you, how they receive you. And then that's an incongruence with your internal world. Like, I'm at the very beginning of that, but I just love that principle that just highlights that there is a you that you know that no one else does, and then there is a you that everyone else knows that you don't even know. And that's almost like that blind spot that sits right between your eyes. And that's why I introduced that, is it's good to start to listen to the patterns of compliments and narratives that you start to get from others that you don't agree with, or you think, oh, what are they talking about? When I say patterns, if more than one people do it consecutively over time, and they're in different areas, and they're not your mom or your best friend or your wife or your husband, that's an example of like, well, okay, I've been told that in this area, this area, and this area, but I just don't see it. Then you're going to go, oh, that might be my external personality, and that does exist. It's fascinating. So I'm just going to park that. I'm going to have introduced that. Then the next thing is, I want to just say, like, how will this help? And I think if I haven't already touched on it, because sometimes I talk and it just goes, right? How will this help? Well, I've just mentioned acceptance, but I know it's a hell of a journey. If you can start to learn about personalities, what you'll do is you'll get one, let's say Myers-Briggs or the insights and all those kind of things that categorize you. And they are amazing as a first step in, because they start to show you that there are people that think differently to you, because you don't know what you don't know. And you could only ever think from your point of view. So when you read it and you go, oh, I don't think that you go, oh, you must say, like, oh, there's people that think like that, okay? So it's a journey. You can go into those initial ones, and there's lots of free ones on the internet, and then you start to deep dive into ones that have a bit more depth to them, a bit more individualism. I think that's really important. But obviously, the deeper you go and the more individual they get, the harder it is to contextualize them, because now, but you have to understand so much. So I've spoken about, I use I3 in business. And I3 is literally, it talks about what is your gift. There's one of 7. We all have 7 gifts in us. And we have the same 7 gifts, but your top gift is different to my top gift. Or if your top gift is the same as mine, our second one that accompanies that is different. And therefore we think differently. And that can go all the way down to like your last gift. So we could have the same top 6, the same top 5. Oh, there's my math ratios. But if the last 2 are swapped over, we think differently. Then we also look at how far apart or close they sit. So how strongly do you feel towards that gift, and how strongly does it sit apart from you? So I'm going to go through a couple just to show you just to give you a refresher of what they are. And I want you to start to self-reflect as to what yours might be. And what I mean by like, how does that actually help, is because if you can start to see what yours are, you will also start to see what yours are not. And you'll stop fooling yourself into trying to do things that take more energy than you have to give. We currently live in a mental health pandemic. We live with people that need resilience. They need, the burnout is through the roof. All of those things are because we're not being true to our energy systems and the things that drive us, because we're trying to operate in that zone of excellence, not in our zone of genius. And when we operate in that zone of excellence for too long, and it starts to slowly take away our energy, and we don't know how to refill that, that's what happens over a long term, where we just start to get tired. We're just like, I can't do this anymore, but I love my job, I'm really good at what I do, but I can't do it. That's where I want us to really understand that if you know your gift, or if you think you know your gift, then it's just about knowing what gives you energy and what does not, what makes you feel powerful and what does not. And when you know that, you can start to see what happens with other people and what their gifts might be. You're not really ever going to know, because only they will know. But you can start to steer them in the right direction. You can, I hope you see how this helps from a leadership perspective. If you're in charge of a team and you don't know yourself, you're going to expect everyone to operate at your standard. And as long as hard as you go at the standard that you do, and just understand it the way you do. That's like category 0 of scale of leadership, right? Then you got like 5 scales or 4 scales, whatever scale you want to put to it. But every scale they go further and deeper into it. You get the leader that then understands who they are, i.e. self-awareness. Then they understand what they are not. And that's where the acceptance comes in, is imagine a leader that goes, guys, we need to do this project, but I have no idea how to do those 4 elements. I'm really good at that one. And I'm going to lead you guys, I'm going to hold you to stand, I'm going to do all that kind of stuff, but please, please bring your gift. I'm going to ask you your opinion and I value it. And you start to feel empowered, you start to contribute, and you start to really play this role that like a team really should. Okay, that's why self-awareness is important. In a work context, it's going to bring you so much more money in. You're going to make you so much more efficient. People are not going to be sick. They're going to have a good culture. You are still going to be around in 15 years' time with the organization. It helps out at family because I have 4 children and all 4 of my children are different. And if before I came along, or before the gifts come along, I would have said, my children are going to be either like me, like Ray, or a mixture of us, and therefore there's going to be a lot of similarities. Yes, in their behaviors and their manners, those things are the way we say will be similar. But in terms of their personalities, they are different, and I love it. I love recognizing it. I love knowing how to parent Laurie completely differently to Miles. I love knowing how to parent Monty completely differently to Clark. And if I can start to see that early in them, I can encourage that in them and empower them and really not beat them down if they have something that is opposite to me. I think that's the biggest one, is like, you don't want to grow up with that critical parent that forgets that you are different to them. And I think far too many people have grown up in that environment. And this is where this helps. If you can see how that helps with family, and you can then start to help with friends, when you have friends that have things that irk you, or just rub you up the wrong way, or you might be the friend that rubs people up the wrong way and you irk them and eke them. Self-reflection allows you to go, where am I different? Where are my strengths? What do I bring? I need to taper that down, because I always put it on a pendulum of extremes. And if you can find, I say, like, there is a strength and an awareness to every single trait that we have. Look into my eyes. Okay. And there is, so essentially a positive and a negative, but we don't like to use the word negative because there's got to be acceptance, right? And what we want to do in life is try and find this rhythm on this pendulum where it sits like this. And let's just say there's the whole pendulum, and it sits tick-tock, tick-tock, just like a clock, right? There are going to be instances in life where that pendulum is swung negative or positive, so strength or awareness. You're in the right situation at the right time, that strength, everyone's like, you're amazing. In a different context, that strength that everyone loved, let's say you're vocal, energetic, positive, in the wrong environment, that becomes a toxic trait because you've misread the room, wrong time, wrong place. That then doesn't serve well. So our self-awareness should allow us to be able to tick in this mid-zone of that pendulum so that we can catch ourselves when the extremes start to come and keep ourselves consistent, right? Also, give us the freedom to, when it starts to swing to the extreme, we go, yeah, I can notice I'm going there. That's okay. It's fine in this situation. Okay, that's what I really wanted to point out without getting too deep. If you're still with me, then amazing. Then you obviously are onto something, you're learning a bit more. Cool. I'm going to now give an overview of the 7 gifts. One of these might be yours. And there will be an experiment. You'll go, yeah, that's me. Yeah, that's me. And it's more complicated than what I'm putting out here because they're all layered together. But if you can start to recognize the extreme individual you might come across that has one of these, or within yourself, what is it meant to be? That's going to help you a load, okay? And if you are interested, we do these. So this is fascinating. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the promoter trait. And this one's energy is like your people person. They are, as an example, they're the kind of person that every time I do a feedback with them, they go, hi, Don, how are you doing? You okay, right? So they're always out. They're always energetic. They're always asking. They're always keen. They always get excited when they see you. Some of the things about those promoters is they can be quite outspoken. They are constantly, mostly positive, as in everyone gets negative, but they'll just bounce through it a lot quicker. And then it also depends on what is accompanying that gift. But not necessarily worried about detail, more of a vocal communicator, likes pictures. So if you think about that kind of person in your team and you write long-winded emails and expect them to understand that email that's got 5 pages to it, you get irritated because they don't do it. Like 1 out of every 7, they get it. But those other 6, they're just like, this is a lot. It takes a lot for them. because they're not detail orientated, they're not written communicators. So we've got to understand what's their gift, how do they go about things. They love people, put them around people, get them to encourage them. Their gift is to encourage. That's their thing. So when they're encouraging people, i.e. anything that shows a positive body language feedback, that's going to be giving them energy. So you think about, they could be a teacher, they could be a leader, they could be, even unfortunately find themselves in accounting, for example. As long as they get to work with people, that's going to be feeding that energy. So then you know how to work them, right? Sales, that's salesperson right there. Next gift is inquiring. So your inquirers here, that gift is to teach. And it's not like in a classroom. It's not as a lecturer. Although they probably do end up being a lecturer, and you'll see why. But it's almost imparting knowledge. Like the high inquirers are here to find stuff out, do some deep dives, understand a lot about a lot, and then impart that knowledge onto others. Now, how you tell, what are the telltale signs of a high inquirer is the certificates and qualifications behind their name. Which I've heard someone say, oh, that's just a lack of confidence. But I'm like, well, yes, because this trait does get its confidence from knowledge. So I always say you're on a sliding scale of confidence, but that's okay because they have a good intent at the root of it to make sure that they are helping others upgrade their life with information they get from the high inquirer. So they want to make sure that if they do go out there and teach, they're teaching something that is solidly grounded and has an accepted level of knowledge passed on, that they're not wrong. Because I think it's a lack of confidence. It's not so much a lack of confidence as they don't want to be wrong because they genuinely want to make sure that they're having a positive contribution. I mean, some of the other things with the high inquirer is they'll see things in black and white. They're not emotionally driven. They're more facts and figures. So they will like to have, look at your scientists, look at your engineers, look at like some forensic detectives, because your inquirers like to find problems, like to find solutions to problems that no one else can find. So when they say forensic detectives, forensic accountants or detectives, all that kind of stuff, it's, oh, there's a problem, we don't know where it is, they'll go and find it out. So yeah, that could be yours. You could know someone else like that. They can be quite stubborn. They can be a know-it-all. They can be intolerant to people that don't think like them. Again, every positive has an equal and opposite awareness. The next is organizer trait. So this one's gift is leadership, and it's not leadership as in like a CEO or a business owner or a prefect. It's more the ability to coordinate, deal with stress, very ambitious, in terms of like they want to get to the top so they can have these really ambitious goals. So you can see how it ties in, like almost like a visionary type leader where they want to be 5 years down the line now. Like that's where I want to be. Let's go. I'm setting the direction. You guys do it. I'll watch from over here. Let's see where we go. So good with dealing with stress. Also black and white thinkers, not necessarily worried about the detail, but also very good with people. Some of the awarenesses is that they're all about control. So not in an over-controlling, fearful manner, as in like that. Control is like, we need to do it this way. And if someone else is not doing it their way, they're not going to like bear down on them, but they're going to get slightly annoyed. It's like, why do you keep doing it your way? Like we've agreed this is the way that it's got to be done. That makes sense. And you can see that that's a great trait to have. Control is a neutral for me, because in the right context, you need control. In the wrong context, the control becomes too much. So they're very good at creating structure out of chaos. That's just probably where they thrive. So the more pressure you put them under, the more they rise up. Whereas if there's not much pressure, they're probably not going to be as excited. So, and that's not, by the way, the same thing as doing deadlines, like needing deadlines to do stuff. I think it's a different thing. There's like rooted in determined. They've got a good determination about them, where others might fall off. They'll keep going. Again, problem with that: overcommitted, do things for too long when they probably shouldn't. But because they have this belief, long-term vision that they want to achieve. Next is responding. So responding is their gift is mercy. So this person is all about love, relationships, people first, people over task. Can be prone to procrastination and indecision, but especially because the indecision is around, I know that this decision is going to affect that person. And that's where their first thought goes, because it's like an anti-conflict trait. It's all about harmony, making sure that we all get along. So in the right context, incredible gift. Like absolutely no one will love and understand and be as empathetic as a high responder, because their mind just goes there. Like they'll put themselves at the back of the queue. So as long as everyone else is okay, I don't really matter. So learning to learn to value themselves is important because they're not materialistic. They will just go with the flow and they live day to day. It can be quite reactive in nature, can be quite defensive in terms of how they react emotionally towards things because they put emotion first. We say with the high inquirer, it's facts and figures first. So you think about if you're in a marriage or in a partnership and one is a high responder, one's a high inquirer, and then the opposites are low, which by the way we often find, because this used to be a marriage guidance tool, is we'll often partner with people that have the opposite top and bottom traits to us. So, mine and Ray's are opposite. And this helped me so much learn that when we argued, I was trying to get her to understand how I thought and why she was offending me or I was offending her. And I had to self-reflect and go, oh, hold on, I'm reacting like this because of me. And that was like a massive ownership state. I was like, oh, okay. I can see why that's upset me because you've gone this way, you've said that, but I also know that I only get upset because I choose to get upset. Does that make sense? So I love the fact that it allows you to self-reflect, take control of your emotions, all that kind of stuff that comes with it. And this has been super helpful. I did leave out the fact this was a marriage guidance tool originally. So it is about interrelational elements and how we understand it. And just quickly to deviate on that, I would almost say just remember every self-awareness journey has stages to it. It's never one stage complete. So, you could feed this back to a couple and it cause more problems because then they start to see the reasons why they don't get along. And that's where you've got to be really careful, is we've got to make sure that we're using it to see the best in others. But it starts with learning to see the best in ourselves. And if you can't see the best in yourself, it's going to be really hard to see the best in others, especially when the pressure is on. And especially when you're not feeling good about things. Is because if how we judge others is how we judge ourselves. Like if you're always harsh on yourself, when the pressure's on you, you're harsh on others. It's just, that ends up happening more often than we think. So then we've got 3 more gifts to go. The next gift is enterprising. So high enterprises, they're all about giving. So they're very good with money, but it's not about money. So they can burn the candle at both ends. Their mind never stops. They just go. Very good at strategizing. It's probably like your modern day natural business owner trait without having to try and be a business owner. But obviously the problem with that is they can burn out because they'll just keep going. Because they're all about what they value. So where they see value in something, they'll give all of themselves. Where they see no value, they'll give none. So they can be very, to the point and just say it as it is. Because I say it's like they're a value-based trait, so where they see value, but they also might have high values and they don't mind speaking up on those, which can come across as harsh. Because they can be stubborn, they'll only see their value. They'll only see it from their value point of view, and they won't really care if you don't see it from their value point of view, which is it's not a bad thing, right? Right context, right thing. But they also are, their gift is not value, their gift is giving. They love to give, but in order to give, they have to know how to get. Wow, I got that completely wrong. It's a value-based trait whose gift is giving, just to be clear, right? So they love to give, and giving, in order to give, you have to get. So that means I'm going to go make money so I can go and give. But it's not giving money, it's giving to charity. It's giving back to the people. It's giving to my family. It's like getting this really nice, expensive house or this really expensive car. Because it's not about the money. Once they've got the money enables them to give. But they can be very frugal with money because they understand how it affects the bottom line without even having to think about it. It's a fascinating trait, and one that it's harder to see this type of person day to day, because when they value you, they're giving you the best of themselves. When they don't, they're not giving you anything. So you only get to see that when they either start valuing you and they change their behavior completely, or they stop valuing you and they give you the cold shoulder. Okay, knowing this helps you understand why certain people will suddenly just move on. And instead of you thinking there's something wrong with you, you just go, it could be the enterprising trait. Next is a practical trait, and this is all about serving. So they get energy from serving, being part of a team, working hard for it, and understanding how they fit in. So the emotional understanding of the team, being aware of their role, but also really wanting to contribute, because that contribution is how they get value. And if they don't get, this is a big one, acknowledgement and appreciation, then that's going to make them withdraw a little bit and isolate. And I think that's universal for humans, but understand it's because all of these traits are in us. It's just some are higher than others. So someone that's highly practical will thrive more on being acknowledged and appreciated more often than someone that's low practical, because it's not as important to them. Does that make sense? So if you see, this is really interesting from a leadership point of view. Is like if you're leading a team, you're highly unlikely to be highly practical. And if you are, you're going to be like the doer. You're going to be doing the whole time and working hard, because if you're the leader, you're going to want to be as hands-off as possible. And that means you're going to be handing stuff off to your doers, which is going to be your practical, your inquirers, and there's obviously a mix, never perfect. But understanding that, you understand how not to put the team into positions where they're overwhelmed, overworked, and you start to lose the flow and the connection of the team. And what we very rarely realize is that leader is the one that initiates that, whether it works or not. So if you have highly practical people and you don't know the highly practical people, guess what's going to happen? You're going to keep giving them stuff and keep giving them stuff, because they're very good at taking it and fixing that problem, because that's just what it is. Like, oh, yep, I can do it. They can see solutions to problems straight away. They can take it on. Very, very detail-orientated traits. And they'll just keep taking stuff off of you. And if you're not aware of it, you're going to overload them, and they're not going to say anything, because that's them being part of the team. Okay, so it's just about understanding that balance, when to put boundaries in place and when not to. Acknowledge and appreciate. Okay, and if you're practical, put boundaries in yourself. Put boundaries in place for yourself, and know you're probably going to overstep those boundaries. But if you don't put them in, you don't know when you've overstepped them. Okay, and I think that's how we start to create awareness out of it. And then the last one is perceiving. So high perceiving trait is all about prophecy. I know that sounds really weird, like how do we get energy from prophecy? But if you understand the principle of it, I love it. It's all about future thinking, very creative, very much like a bull in a china shop. Once they've made up their mind, they go. Very quick thinker and super creative. So they'll say things as they are. They'll be stubborn to how they see things, and they'll always see things differently. And I really like that trait, because when you start to see a high perceiver in action, it's very impressive. They may miss a lot because, like I said, once they see it, that's all they see, which means that they're going to be right, but they're going to probably piss people off along the way of being right. It's fantastic. Honestly, it's helped me. This one has helped me so much, because they can be quite abrasive and blunt and passionate, because they've got a depth to them. The passion is there. And if you're not aware of that, it's a lot. But if you're aware of it, like I've seen perceivers in full flow, and I smile, because I'm just like, I love it. And they'll be like, some of them are more aware. I'll be like, I'm so sorry. I know that I'm quite blunt, and I'm like, no, you carry on. I recognize you. That's a big one, is I recognize you, and I love it. Don't apologize for it. Because at the overall theme of this is acceptance. Like, if you can accept others, like they can bring their bad, they can bring their good, and you're just like, I see your soul, I see your energy, not I see your soul literally, but like, man, I accept you. Like, fantastic. Please just keep bringing that. Be aware that everyone in the team might not see it like that, so understand when to soften it, but don't apologize to me, because I understand that in order for you to bring that, there's also that comes with it. Okay, so I know that this has gone quite in depth, but I really hope that it's helping someone out there that is interested in personality development, or has been on it and you don't agree with it. Like, if you've done the Myers-Briggs or the insights and they block you into certain things, like, and you go, it's not quite there, and you've brushed it off, like, don't stop. That was stage one. Like, stage two is more the individual stuff that does require a bit more depth. It does require a bit more knowledge and understanding, and how to tie it in and know that it's on a journey. But it doesn't mean it's wrong. It just, you haven't given it time. Okay, so like, we can dive into like which of those traits are detail versus non-detail orientated. Which traits are, how do they communicate? Like, who likes to speak in person? Who likes to speak, like, who likes to watch videos or likes the verbal instruction versus who likes to write it all down, and who needs the detail for their confidence? When it comes to change, like, who's more open to change, and how do we get more like these traits that aren't open to change to be open to change? There are ways, and I see them all the time with how, when we go and do work in businesses, as well as thought transactions. Some people think really quickly and move really quickly. Some people do not. Some sit right in the middle. Okay, there's a wonderful blend. So, just to finish off, two things. One of my thoughts, and this isn't proven, this is just now Don speaking, is what if you did those 7 and you got your 7 one of those is your gift, right? Sometimes you can be multi-gifted, as in two, but if let's just go on the thing, one of those is your gift and the other six accompany it. So I chatted to someone from America. His name's Alex Paulos, and he does the facial recognition. And he has a fascinating principle that there is your temperament. I don't know if it's his, but it's in his book. Is your temperament, and then there is the personality clusters. So your temperament is what you're born with, and the personality clusters wrap around that. Okay, so to tie that into this is what if your gift was one of those six, and the other six were your conditioning, so that's a human design reference. Your conditioning are like how you're brought up. So think about if I said to you, there's a promoter in family 1 and a promoter in family 2. They're going to have the same gift, i.e. the same temperament. But if promoter 1's family was full of introverts, they're probably going to be a bit more balanced, right? So they might have, a quieter trait that accompanies that top promoter. So they're going to present differently to promoter number 2 that was in like Tony Robbins' family. He's completely out there, like just completely themselves and just, so they don't have the same pairing of different traits. Their personality cluster is different. Okay, so, and I also said like, what if some of these were, because it's personality clusters, we understand its environment, is that your reactions to trauma. So what if you have a gift, but then there's something that wraps so closely around that due to trauma and upbringing that it's really hard to see. And part of getting closer to yourself isn't trying to unravel the trauma, because when you unravel the trauma, what are you left with? If you start to know your gift and your temperament, that allows you to work towards that and not worry so much about taking that trauma away, because you'll just understand it and naturally things will start to flow. Those are just thoughts. They haven't been confirmed yet, but those are off current observations. And we'll see where they go. And if you've listened for this long, I really appreciate you. And on the end here, I just want to say that the journey takes far longer than you know, far longer than you would probably like. And the metaphor I want to give you is it's like planting a bonsai seed. So when I first moved into this house, we've probably been here 4 years now. I went and bought some Japanese pine bonsai seeds, and I was planting them. I had maybe 8. And I can't remember who it was. I had a friend that came around, and I was like, oh, look, I've planted some bonsai seeds. This is what it's going to look like when it's older. Maybe in 10 years' time, or 50 years' time. And they looked and they're like, why would you bother even starting? It's going to take so long. And I was like, because if I don't start now, and I start in 5 years' time, I'm going to be 5 years behind where I could be. And I recognize that this is a long-term project. And it's, do you know what? Just by having that attitude, I've got 15 to 20 jacaranda seeds outside. And by the way, the Japanese black pine ones died. I was so upset. It was 3 years. They were 3 years old and they died. But it's a learn. So I got 15 jacaranda trees outside. And I'm hoping that at least 3 or 5 of them make it. But I also know that in 10 years' time, they're going to be flowering. I can wait, but I'm so excited that in 10 years' time, I'm going to have some bonsais that I've grown from seed. They're going to be flowering purple flowers, and they're going to be beautiful. And people are going to say, wow, you put a lot of time and effort in it. I was like, I've just waited. I've just been patient. And I've understood that at year 1, at year 2, at year 3, there's going to be things that I need to learn. Otherwise, they might die. And that's the same with personality profiling or personality development, understanding yourself. Is you can go and you can get the pot already, you can have the great layers of seed, and then the roots grow, and then all of a sudden the tree dies because you've overwatered it, but you don't know why. So then you go, oh, these bonsais don't work anyway. It's special conditions. Same with personality stuff, right? If you don't give it the chance to grow and you don't just slowly learn as you go and understand that it's a process, then you're probably going to give up on it and then think that all personality stuff is nonsense. But it's not. It just is probably, you need to learn to interpret it differently. You need to see in 3D, 5D, 6D, 9D, and make links yourself and learn. And also realize that you're going to solidify your identity into a certain thing, and then you're going to realize that you're going to break that, and then the next level comes. That's okay. Like, go with the thing that resonates the most at the time, because that's how you're going to learn. That actually is probably not all of you. But that's, I reckon, if you were to put layers into it, there's infinite layers. But the more you go, you're going to have a set point, a certain identity. You're going to go with that. Then you're going to realize there's holes in that identity. So you're going to go to the next level and the next level. And that's how I think that the story of like understanding personalities, and that's why all those sayings are one of the hardest things to know in life is yourself. You can know everything else, but the hardest thing to know is yourself. That Johari's window, black in the corner. It's endless, but it should excite you. I love it. So if you've liked any of the stuff that I've spoken about today, go onto our wait list and join the email list, and you'll start to see more of this kind of stuff, and we'll speak about it. But we'll do a 5-day challenge that's free. We do the course if you're interested in the course, where you'll get introduced to this stuff. But it's a journey. Like I said, no one should be able to teach you everything you know about yourself in an 8-week time. That's an incredible transformation if they do, and fair play to them. But if you'd like to join the journey, if you'd like us to join your journey, then put your email on the wait list, and then just do the challenges. Let's see what you've got. Like, they're there to change your life slowly but surely, and that surely bit is the one I want to emphasize. So, thank you for listening this long. I'll end off the same way I always do. Remember, Ubuntu, we are who we are through others. I'll work on me for you if you work on you for me. Have a great day.